Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom, and this is my podcast. Join me as I delve into the world of games and gaming, and especially old school RPGs. Together, let's voyage into the astral realm and check out my Phantom thoughts. All right, this is just a quick episode. There were just a ton of bundles that were put out recently, and I had some blogs that I wanted to go over, so I put those together real quick. So no Calthus and Dragon Slayer, no extra stuff beyond that. So bundles and blogs, quick bundles and blogs episode in the midst of RPGaDay. Hope you're enjoying the content, and hope you're checking out other creators across the webs in RPGaDay in August. So a bunch of bundles dropped after I recorded the last group of bundles. 7 over on Bundle of Holding, and then 2 more on Humble Bundle. Although one of them is not a PDF bundle, but I wanted to include it, and I'll explain why when I get to that one. First, I want to start with the Bundle of Holding bundles. They are all GURPS. They had kind of a GURPS week where in 5 days dropped 7 bundles. So first up, we have the GURPS 4E Essentials bundle. This is one of the 2-parter bundles where there is a core collection, and then there is a bonus that if you pay the level up price, you get the bonus. The level up price for this bundle is $40.06. The basic collection is $19.95. The basic collection is the GURPS 4E basic set from 2004, and I believe that is the current version of GURPS. I don't believe they've gone up to a 5th edition. They've been working with 4th edition for quite a while and adding on to it. So this should be the most recent version of GURPS. And if you're not familiar with GURPS, I think most people who listen to this podcast probably are, but GURPS stands for Generic Universal Role-Playing System, and it's from Steve Jackson Games, and it goes back to the 80s for the original 1st edition version of this, and it actually came out of a couple of micro games that Steve Jackson designed originally with metagaming, with Melee and Wizard, and then later on those became the Fantasy Trip, which was kind of an advancement of the rules, and that eventually led to GURPS. So it's just this path that was started, and now GURPS is up to 4th edition. And the thing about GURPS is they have a ton of supplemental books that you can mix and match to create the style game you want. Some of them are about genres. Some of them are about specific settings. There are a lot of historical settings that they have source books for. So it's very flexible. It's very flexible system in that you buy the basic set and then you can just buy what you want. You don't have to buy all the books and put everything together, because you can play heavy science fiction with it, you can play fantasy with it, you can play pretty much any genre. Like I said, it's generic universal role-playing system, so it's meant to be able to play everything to an extent. So like I said, you get the basic set, which is the characters and campaigns books, and then plus you get template toolkit number 1, characters, you get adaptations, how to be a GURPS GM, and the GURPS GM screen, and then the level up price. If you pay that, you'll get high tech plus the high tech weapons table, and ultra tech plus the ultra tech weapons table, biotech, low tech, and mass combat. So all the other bundles add on to this. There's the GURPS 4E Infinite Worlds. That is, I actually own Infinite Worlds from a hardback from a long time ago that I picked up because it's about, all worlds that had alternate histories to our own. And I've always liked that sort of thing. So I've actually had that book for a long time. And so this is another 2-part bundle, $17.95 for the starter. And then the bonus has a level up price of $30.92 as I'm recording. So for $17.95 basic bundle, you get the GURPS 4E Infinite Worlds campaign source book, 4 historical hotspots: Constantinople 527 to 1204 AD, Renaissance Florence, Renaissance Venice, and the Silk Road, and City Stats, a system for assigning numerical ratings to differentiate cities. The bonus collection gives you 4 Infinite World setting guides: Britannica 6, Collegio Januarii, Lost Worlds, and Underground Adventures. And then 5 location supplements: Hell's Gate, Metro of Madness, St. George's Cathedral, Tower of Octavius, and Worming Hall, plus the dinosaur hunting guide, Lands Out of Time. And just as an aside, it mentions that you would need the 2-volume basic set from the first bundle that I mentioned, and all these others will go along with it as well. For those bundles, they add on to that basic set. So the next one is GURPS Combat Action, $17.95 for the basic. The level up price is currently $37.96. The basic, you get GURPS 4E Martial Arts, Tactical Shooting, Gun Fu, High-Tech Adventure Guns, and Pulp Guns Volume 1 and Volume 2. With the bonus, you get 5 releases in the Action series: Action 1 Heroes, 2 Exploits, 3 Furious Fists, 4 Specialists, and 5 Dictionary of Danger, plus 4 Martial Arts expansion: Fairborn Close Combat Systems, Gladiators, Technical Grappling, and Yurth Fighting Styles, plus Transhuman Space Martial Arts 2100. The next bundle is 4E Space. The starter set for that is $12.95, and the level up price is currently $35.05. So with the starter, you get GURPS Space, Spaceships, and Sonic Powers. And then the bonus gives you Size, Sci-Tech, and Sonic campaigns, and the Pulpish Retro Future campaign, Tales of the Solar Patrol. So the next bundle is GURPS 4E Fantasy. The basic starter is $19.95. The level up price is currently $38.22. For the basic, you get GURPS Fantasy, Magic, Banestorm, and Alphabet Arcane. And with the bonus collection, you get Thaumatology and 6 Thaumatology source books: Magical Styles, Sorcery, Ritual Path Magic, Age of Gold, Alchemical Baroque, and Urban Magics. The next bundle is GURPS 4E Supers. The starter collection is $9.95, and the level up price is currently $34.96. For the basic, you get the complete GURPS 4E Supers and GURPS 4E Powers. And with the bonus, you get 4 Powers, Rules Expansions, Divine Favor, Enhanced Senses, Totems and Nature Spirits, and The Weird. And the first 9 installment of the GURPS Power Up series: GURPS Power Ups: 1 Imbuements, 2 Perks, 3 Talents, 4 Enhancements, 5 Impulse Buys, 6 Quirks, 7 Wildcard Skills, 8 Limitations, and 9 Alternate Attributes. And then the final bundle is GURPS 4E Horror. It's easy for me to say. The starter is $14.95. The bonus is currently at the threshold price of $30.14. The horror starter gives you GURPS Horror, 5 Creatures of the Night Bestiaries, Creatures of the Night 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as well as an Infinite Worlds location book, Infinite Worlds, Worlds of Horror. And then the bonus collection gives you Ken Heights Campaign, The Madness Dossier, 5 Monster Hunters installments: Monster Hunters 1 Champions, 2 The Mission, 3 The Enemy, Monster Hunters Power-Ups 1, and Loadouts Monster Hunters, and the undyingly popular Zombies and Zombies Day 1. So that is 7 bundles. If you get just the basics, you're looking at just under $114 just to get the basic versions of each of those. And with the threshold prices up in the 30s to 40s, you're looking at well over $200 if you want to get everything. But to buy those books individually from Steve Jackson Games, even just getting PDFs, would be much, much more than that. So if you're a GURPS fan and you never really got it, if you were a fan of an older version and maybe you were interested in getting the 4th edition, you could buy everything for cheaper. But like I said, as you could tell from the names of the various bundles, you can play anything. If you wanted the fantasy, you could just get the essentials plus the fantasy. If you wanted to get the science fiction, you could get those. You could get the GURPS 4E Space and the essentials, and maybe Infinite Worlds, because there's a lot of sci-fi in there. But you could mix and match however you want. But that's a lot of books, a lot of bundles. So now moving over to Humble Bundle, the book bundle is From Rivers to Fjords, Explore the Worlds of Basic Role-Playing. This is from Chaosium, their basic role-playing system. There's a 4-item bundle, an 8-item bundle, a 4-item bundle for $5, 8-item bundle for $10, and a 14-item bundle for $18. The 4-item bundle gives you the basic role-playing Universal Game Engine, the Age of Vikings Quick Start, the basic role-playing Game Master Pack, and the Domestic Rivers of London RPG Solo. The 8-item bundle adds Age of Vikings Core Rulebook, the Age of Vikings The Cursed Farm, Rivers of London the role-playing game, and Rivers of London Going Underground, which is a case file, which is the equivalent of an adventure or module for that system. And then going up to the 14-item bundle, you get basic role-playing creatures, basic role-playing Universal Game Engine Quick Start. It's odd that that's on the highest bundle, not the lowest to me. The Age of Vikings Game Master Screen Pack, Rivers of London, In Liberty's Shadow, A Guide to Case Files in the USA, Rivers of London, The Font of All Evil, that's another adventure, Rivers of London, Jimmy's Last Dance, another adventure. So those 6 things are added to the previous items. So the last bundle I'm going to talk about, also from Humble Bundle, it's not a PDF book collection. It is a computer game collection. Now, both Fanatical and Humble Bundle frequently offer computer game bundles. I don't typically talk about them because that's not what this podcast is really about. But this is the Dungeons & Dragons Classic Collection 2026. And this is a bunch of old Dungeons & Dragons computer games, including, I think, everything that SSI put out and some other games besides. So these are all pretty old games that probably a lot of people that have played Dungeons & Dragons and, when they were younger, played them on the computer because it's available to play Dungeons & Dragons on the computer. Are you kidding me? And there are also a couple of coupons in here for some of the newer games that have the Dungeons & Dragons. But, to give you an idea, you've got again, 3 bundles, 7 items for $5, 13 items for $8, 17 items for $12. So really, really good pricing for this. The 7-item bundle, and a lot of these items, individual items, are collections. So, for example, the first bundle gives you a coupon for 33% off the Temple of Elemental Evil, and a coupon for 5% off Pool of Radiance, Ruins of Myth Draenor. Then you get to the classic games, Death Keep, Dragon Strike, the Stronghold, Kingdom Simulator, Al-Qadim, the Genie's Curse, and then the other of these items is Forgotten Realms, the Archives Collection 3, which has 2 games in it, Dungeon Hack and Menzoberranzan. I don't think I said that correctly, but Menzoberranzan. The 13-item bundle adds Spelljammer, Pirates of Realm Space, Fantasy Empires, the Silver Box Classics, which has Heroes of the Lance, Dragons of Flame, War of the Lance, Shadow Sorcerer. So you've got a lot of Dragonlance in that collection. Then you have Dungeons and Dragons, the Ravenloft series, which has Ravenloft Strahd's Possession and Ravenloft Stone Prophet. So that's 2 games in that, even though it counts as 1 item for the purposes of this bundle. Then you have the Dungeons and Dragons Dark Sun series, which has Shattered Lands, Dark Sun Shattered Lands, and Dark Sun Wake of the Ravager. And then the Dungeons and Dragons Krynn series, which has Champions of Krynn, Death Knights of Krynn, the Dark Queen, and the Dark Queen of Krynn. And then when you go up to the 17 item bundle, you add 4 more items. You add Forgotten Realms Demon Stone, Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard, the Forgotten Realms the Archives Collection 2, which includes Pool of Radiance, Curse of the Azure Bonds, Hills Far, Secret of the Silver Blades, Pools of Darkness, Gateway to the Savage Frontier, Treasures of the Savage Frontier, and Forgotten Realms Unlimited Adventures. And then Dungeons and Dragons Forgotten Realms, the Archives Collection 1, which is the Eye of the Beholder series, which has 3 games in it: Eye of the Beholder, Eye of the Beholder 2, The Legend of Dark Moon, and Eye of the Beholder 3, Assault on Myth Draenor. So it's 17 items, but if you start looking at the multiple bundles, you're looking at over 20 games in this bundle plus the 2 coupons. So, and that's why I wanted to include it, because it is games based on the Dungeons and Dragons franchise. I think all of the old games are based on 2nd edition, although some of them may be based on 1st edition AD&D, but I think most of them are based on the 2nd edition. And then some of the newer games are based, I think, on some of the a newer system. I think there's some 3rd edition games in there. But anyway, these are mostly classic old games, and a lot of us grew up playing them. I know Curse of the Azure Bonds was one that I remember playing long ago, and I remember putting a lot of hours into the Eye of the Beholder series. So that is why I wanted to include it here. And if you don't have any of these games, or if you have some of these games, or even if you have most of these games, and you just want to finish up the collection, $12 for all that is just amazing. These are going to be, you're going to Steam keys for these, so you'll get them through Steam. You have to redeem them through Steam. So that is the bundles. A lot of GURPS, a lot of old Dungeons and Dragons games, and then basic role playing, and a couple of games with besides just the basic rules for the basic role playing system. Looking at blogs have caught my attention. The July 27th entry in the Dungeoneering blog at dungeoneeringblogspot.com is called AD&D Secondary Skills as Backgrounds. And it mentions a table that's in the AD&D DMG where you can roll for a background for your character, just something that to help, flesh out who they were before they begin their life of adventuring. And that's all it is in the DMG, is it's just a list of things. They could have been things like armorer, bowyer, fletcher, farmer, miner, navigator, sailor, tailor, just lots of different things. And what this blog post has is just some minor mechanical advantages that it could give you to have these backgrounds, so that it impacts the character a little more, gives the character a little more, makes you different from the just generic fighter, generic ranger, generic magic user, generic cleric, what have you. Just a little something to differentiate a character of this class from another character of the same class, since 1st edition AD&D doesn't have a lot of the same, all these different choices and all these different subclasses that you could pick from like later editions do. Moving over to the blog Whose Measure God Could Not Take, also on July 27th, the Provincial Rumor Generator. And this is not for dungeon rumors, but the kind of sort of thing that people might talk about in town or on the other side of the kingdom. And there's a button that you push called the buzz, and it gives you a rumor. For example, I just pushed the button. It said, "I hear that in the nearby dungeon is forming another raiding party, and so an ill-fated romance is afoot." This is all basically true. That last part is in parentheses. Click it again. "I hear that there will be a purge of local minorities because a powerful noble plots against the ruler." And then in parentheses, "actually are seeking to drive each other to poverty." And there's also a button you can push to show the tables that just show the general tables that are used to generate these rumors. So that's something I found interesting. Another entry, also on July 27th, a lot of blogs caught my attention on the 27th. Well, maybe not that day, but for that day. The blog of Forlorn Insistment, AD&D DMG Slush Combat, where they go through the various parts of combat as mentioned in AD&D. Not everything and not in detail, but just gives their idea of, how they interpret certain things and things that they do that maybe are a little different than are in combat, or how they put that combat into their own game when they're playing or DMing. So I found that interesting, that kind of mechanical talk. The Doomslakers blog on the 28th has log 3 of Dead Wizard's design, in this case talking about metacurrency. So another document in their building of this new game. Over at Swords and Stitchery, which it seems I mention every time, on the 31st of July, OSR Sword and Sorcery Adventure Fodder D100 Treasure Table tailored for the Tower of the Serpent Horde, fully compatible with Castles and Crusades and most classic OSR systems. And it says, in true Sword and Sorcery fashion, the Horde favors ancient relics, dark alchemical compounds, sinister Ophidian iconography, and perilous magic over generic +1 longswords. And it's another D100 table, and it's excellent as per usual. And then finally, from the Sorcerer's Skull blog, also on the 31st, Elvin Sex, talking about the idea of creating different groups of elves, that drawing inspiration for the different groups of elves from the Wuxia tradition with its various kung fu sects, schools, cults. This is just a short read. It doesn't go into great detail, but just why they think that would be an excellent approach to differentiate elves other than the way they normally are in old school gaming, the different types of elves. So that's just a quick run through of the blogs. As always, the links to all these entries will be in the show notes. The opening theme of this podcast was Strength of the Titans, and the closing music is Late and Out Radio, both from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you have any thoughts or feedback, you can get in touch with me by leaving me a voicemail on my Google Voice number, 864-209-1441. That's 864-209-1441. Or through SpeakPipe at www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. That's www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. Or you can send me a message or an audio file on Discord, where I can be found the Pink Phantom, or through email, phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. That's phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. I don't have to play or read your feedback on the podcast if that is not your preference. Just let me know.